Hello and welcome back to Pardubice. It's a new season here. We're halfway through, so it's time to get you caught up, and we'll start with, as ever, transfers. But it's been a baffling season, I'll say that much up front. But we also brought in some Premier League experience, so fingers crossed that pays off over the course of the whole season. But yes, transfers first. I've opened on Jan Jarabak just because he's a club legend. If you didn't watch the last one, then I did announce this departure. If you are a fan of Pardubice as a club, then apologies for this departure. But yeah, his contract ran out and I kind of wasn't willing to renew it. I did offer a new contract actually because he's not awful, realistically. Just wanted too much for what he was going to be in the club, effectively. It's one of those sort of FM things that despite the fact he is a club legend and a one-club player, even he wanted too much money relative to the status that he was going to have. So yeah, blame FM for that. That's basically it for Outbounds, just because it's just effectively released players and sort of selling fringe players for pittance money. But also mentioned last time out was Danny Drinkwall's arrival, a Premier League winner. Yep. Has sort of physically declined over the course of the first half of the season already to a fairly alarming degree. I could have sworn his acceleration was more than 8 when I signed him, but apparently not. It's actually only his agility that's gone down 1 according to this. But yeah, he's here. 500 quid a week. It's quite a step down payroll-wise, which is a difficult phrase to say. I genuinely think he's gone from a 6-figure per week to a 3-figure per week. But he is being outpaid by Kevin Morales, who is also declining quite rapidly, apparently. He's 36 now, though. That one's a little bit more understandable. Morales has been paying £900 a week, but that's because he's playing double duty. He is a versatile attacking midfielder by day and a scout by night. Or vice versa, depending on when the game's being played. But yeah, he's played a bit. He's not been good. I'm hoping his scouting is significantly better. Obviously, these are his attributes. Now, I expect, as a staff member, those to be developed over the course of his lifespan. But the reason why I agreed for him to be a player/scout, as weird as it is because of his array of scouting knowledge. Because of all of the places he's played, particularly since leaving Everton. Full Belgian knowledge, full English knowledge, of course. Full France knowledge, full Greek knowledge, full Cypriot knowledge, because he was at Limassol. But he's got outstanding Portuguese, exceptional Turkish and Italian knowledge, and decent knowledge of the Netherlands and Spain as well, because he's part Spanish, even though he's never played there. So he comes with a ridiculous amount of scouting knowledge, and for £900 as a combined player and scout, ticking both boxes at the same time, as a sort of effective combined wage, I felt that was alright. But now we kind of need to rattle through everyone else. But I do need to start with a casual reminder of people like Jesus Farinos, who has come from Inter San Jose for nothing, because Inter San Jose are one of the Spanish under-19s teams. A casual reminder, anyone doing a save like this, or anyone in a lower tier of a sort of a major national league, particularly the lower league Spanish divisions, look at the Spanish under-19 divisions. There's been this revelation this year with amateur players, particularly in nations like Belgium and things like that. These are still a thing. Teams like Ban Sander, if we look at them, and if we actually use SYC's second yellow cards nation team scouting, you can see a lot of people here on non-contract. Not amateurs, but they're all on non-contract, and some of these could be decent. I don't know if this guy is or not, but he's 17. I'm expecting he's not to be fantastic potential. But there are a ton of people here that will be generated in and might have vaguely competent potentials, depending on that guy probably doesn't, depending on it. And we signed one of those because his potential came back as 4/5 star potential. I don't know, is a white star at the end. But even a 4-star potential at this point is an asset when you sign them for free. So when you're doing this nation team scouting, looking for these amateur players in the national teams, don't forget the Spanish under-19s as well, because they still exist as a thing. What you're looking for in the under-19 divisions is those teams that have actual names, not under-19s teams of existing clubs, higher-up clubs. You're not looking at those like Getafere's under-19s or whatever. The actual named clubs like Ban Sander, Inter San Jose, one called CIA, Perines is another one, CF Dam. CF Dam and Ban Sander tend to be the two biggest ones in that respect, but I found this one at Inter San Jose, so you can't discount any of them. But this guy is a right-footed attacking midfielder, which is what we play. So if he develops nicely, 17 determination, 18 flair, 16 teamwork, good work rate already, stamina's lacking, but we obviously are training pace primarily here. If we can get those physicals up, I think he could develop into a reasonably decent player. The problem is, of course, he's massively behind the curve already, but he is only 16. And on that amateur thing, using the second yellow card method of looking at amateurs in national teams. We picked up Andreas Kazlauskas from Lithuania's under-19s or under-21s, I forget which. He's got 2 under-21 caps, so I suspect it was the under-21s. But again, not fantastic, but he came back with 5-star potential, and his value is reasonable for our squad. So he's okay. He is a right back, which is, we do kind of need those. His physicals aren't awful for a 17-year-old, because new gens tend to be quite rubbish in physicals this year, I found, and last year for that matter. But again, work rate's good, stamina's all right, but it's pace that needs to be developed specifically. But he kind of needs to develop across the board to be worthwhile. Playing well in the under-19s, though. So yeah, we just kind of needed to talk about those kind of future amateur players, free signings, effectively, that could be useful in time. It's too early in the save for there to be a lot of those. There was another amateur player in the Danish unders who wouldn't sign just because he wanted to do his development at the club he's at. Yeah, we had that issue. And quite a lot of the amateurs we have found, or free agents that could sign in that respect, have had that as well. There's very few that have come through that have the potential and actually want to leave their club. It's irritating, but it is what it is. But yeah, now for the rest of the squad. And effectively, the majority of these signings are just filling in those spaces that were loan players last year. So backups on the left-hand side, right-footed Atif Konate, fairly strong left foot, so he can do the right-hand side as well. Effectively joined Kevin Morales on the I need backups in the wingers roles, and he would agree to 600 quid a week, released by Forest. Schreier did return at 650 quid a week, squad player, backup striker. Weirdly, nowhere near as prolific as he was last year. It's worth noting he has started 6 games and been subbed on in 6 games, and he's only scored 1 league goal, done oddly better in Europe. So I don't know where the 18 goals in 22 starts from last season went, but apparently he's not willing this year. Goalkeepers were an issue, and I have no real idea why this guy's declining, according to the attributes. Maybe he's taken an injury. He has taken an injury. That was what happened. I say he's only 34th, which for a goalkeeper is nothing, really. But we signed this guy kind of almost as an emergency, just in case we couldn't get any other goalkeepers, because we went in for about 25 of them, and all of them wanted £2,000, £3,000 a week, and ultimately went somewhere else. Most of them went to Aris in Greece. Yeah, they signed 3 of them. It was very confusing. But yeah, that's why he's on 750 quid a week, and he's a backup goalkeeper, is because we kind of got desperate. But 17 jumping reach was the thing there, effectively, and competent aerial, competent reflexes, and not awful one-on-ones or agility is what we compromised on there. He's played 1 game. We did sign a better goalkeeper. And that better goalkeeper is Rafael De Janeiro. He is 30, so he's got plenty of playing time ahead of him. When we signed him, he was a 4-star goalkeeper. Other people have developed in our squad clearly to push him down to just 3 stars, but this guy's just more spread out with his attributes. He's not got that exceptional jumping reach that Christensen had, but he has sort of everything else in moderation. Reflexes are good, one-on-ones are fantastic, command, communication, aerial reach, all solid, handling solid, even his mentals are solid. He's kind of just not really lacking in anything, just also not exceptional in anything really either. One-on-ones 15 is quite nice though. Free agent from Gubbio. He's only conceded 25 goals in 29 appearances this season, and yet I'm about to tell you that this season's been not great. Yeah. David Šimik bolsters central defence. You could just sort of see his attribute range there. They're all pretty solid. 16 jumper reach, 6'5". The other defending technicals are pretty good too. He's back up. Antonin Krapka joined for £3,000. He joined for £3,000 because he had one of those compensation things that I didn't want to risk, so I just paid £3,000 to side him like 3 weeks before his contract actually ended anyway. It was more sensible for me to pay £3,000 guaranteed than risk maybe £50,000 in compensation. It wasn't age-related, it seems. And I think it is a bug. I don't think it's actually a thing. But £3,000 was a willing sacrifice just in case. Yeah, well-rounded, right back. He's been pretty good. That was effectively free agent, so we'll just continue with the other free agents. Sipovic comes in. Left-footed central defender. We got kind of desperate on that front as well, and he came in as a decent one as well. 3 stars, 33 now. Pretty well-rounded. 14, 14, 14. 15 jump reach, 6'6". Weirdly, less jump reach, but taller than the other guy. Scotty Zazut we got on loan for an annoying amount of range, but sort of helps the left-back position. And more recently, Jimi Toriainen was a releasee from Chelsea and has potential, so we just snapped him up. 750 quid a week is quite a lot, quite frankly, but versatile. Can weirdly play halfback as well as winger. Yeah, versatile. Not fantastic. I think most of his star rating, which is only 2 stars, is that versatility, quite frankly, but not slow and exists. But if he can develop again, asset, free agents, assets. And it's kind of a similar deal with Lorenzo, who was released by Real Madrid, I think, effectively. 2.5 stars. Not quite sure where that 2.5 stars comes from on his attributes, but again, if he has that potential and if he grows into that potential, much less risk, only 300 quid a week, but he's 20. So it's kind of one of those, if he does develop, then fantastic. And then on to the people that actually cost us money. We kind of raided Vasco da Gama, who had a lot of people listed as £0. So I thought, oh, hello, we've got a bunch of free agents here that could be worth something. They weren't free agents. As soon as you asked them about their availability, they suddenly put price tags on them. But Lincoln's price tag was £6.25 thousand. Yes, 6,250 quid was his release fee, effectively. So we went, yes, please. £6,000 for a potentially 5-star player, currently 3 stars. We're trading him in halfback. He still hasn't learnt it. He's 5'11". He's 5'11", but has jump and reach 13, which isn't awful, but it's not where I'd want it for a central defender, frankly. So I am training him in the halfback role, and I think he'll excel in the halfback role, where you sort of highlight the attributes necessary for that. It's only teamwork that lacks, quite frankly. So having a halfback who is not awful at heading, I think is going to be useful. So Lincoln joined his fellow Brazilian Breno Biden, who we signed last year, and also joining us from Vasco da Gama for a release fee of £40,000 is a person just called GB. Doesn't have a face in the game, so I had to manually add that one in. He's developed quite nicely. He's one of those players who, despite not being the most natural on left wing, the game just automatically says he's left wing. He's our striker with 10 aggression, sort of straight down the middle for a pressing forward, but you can see he just doesn't really lack in anything. He's just strong across the board. Good balance, good strength. Decent jumper reach, 6 foot. The other physicals could possibly do with being better. But yeah, he's just very well-rounded as a striker, and he has developed a little bit. 1.1 grand a week. It's a lot, quite frankly, for our team, but his value is already quite high. He does have an extension clause in his contract, but his contract does have a release fee, which is concerning. But thankfully, his maximum value is beneath that as things stand. His Brazilian teammate, Breno Biden's value, at one point in the season, his minimum value was 1.2 million and his release fee was 1.2 million. So I thought, probably best to get him a new contract, even though he's only just got here. His minimum value is his release fee. Let's try and sort that out. So I gave him a new contract. It was 200 quid more a week. He was already on 900 or a grand to begin with, just because of percentage gains. So I gave him 1.1 grand a week and a new release fee, which was unnegotiable, by the way. So his new release fee is 2.8 million. Of course, by giving him that new contract, his value changed, and that's now in his value range again. So the one advantage of his new contract, though, is despite the fact he still has a release fee that I couldn't remove, I did get to add a contract extension, which means we should be able to at least fend that off once. But he's developing fantastically. He's been having to play in the halfback role occasionally, despite only being 5'9". And if I move out of the way, you can see he's actually performed better in the halfback role than he has in the midfielder role, which is odd because he's not that. I don't understand why that role has worked out better in halfback, only 3 stars, than any of the midfielder roles. I think it's just because we've played better in the games as a team that he's played halfback in. So that average rating has sort of been inflated just by the team performance. And that's a good segue, because if I show you the last 4 games, you can see why, as a halfback, he might have had those ratings, because he's effectively had to play in this period when people have been injured. Yeah, 4 games unbeaten, 2-0, 5-0 Sparta Prague, you know, the team that won the division last year, 2-1 away at Tbilisi and 1-0 at home to Dynamo. Again, these lower rankings are proving difficult. But you kind of look at the array of fixtures as a whole, and there's a lot of green there, there's a few draws in there. You think it looks like a pretty good season, but you can see at the top, 6th. And that's because if I remove the Cup and I remove the Europa League, that's the league form. Up until, you know, Banik, a draw against Banik isn't awful. So actually, if we just highlight the remainder, first 4 games, no wins. You may recall last year that we didn't have a shot on target against us in the first 2 games we played, and yet conceded 3 goals in the first 2 games this time. Banik away 1-1 as well, actually, so that's not an awful result, all things considered. But we lost to Hradec again, who are our nemesis. Like, genuinely, what do we have to do? We lost to Dynamo, who are awful, but then we did beat Zlín and Slavia Prague, because of course we did. A draw with Jablonec and a win against Bohemians. And at this point, I'm thinking, things are looking up. But then we're drawing with Malada, and Plzeň, beating Slovakia, that's good. And then there's a little period here where there's a bit of, you know, losing as well. Sparta Prague away, not awful. Brno, 2-1 win, that's fine. Pre-Beam, that's not good. They're the promoted team. They're the one team that got promoted. So that loss isn't good. And we're sort of hovering around the 12th, 11th mark through this entire period. Because there's only effectively 4 or 5 wins up to this point in 15 games. We are now 6th with 9 wins, thanks to those 4 in a row. But I can show you that rise. We were sort of just lingering, and I don't really know why it was that low down. It was very tightly contested in that middle block of this table. Because it's not an awful form. It's not this 12th kind of level of form, really. It is sort of more mid-table, probably 7, 8, 9, you'd have thought. But just because it was so tightly contested in that block, we just ended up lower down. And particularly because we're often joint on points with people who had beaten us, because we were struggling against the teams worse than us, frankly, but beating the teams way better than us, like the Pragues, they had the head-to-head on us. So I think that's partially what it was. But now we've started picking up wins. We are 6th now, which is good, because that is obviously the minimum for the championship group, which means if we're still in 6th at the end of the season, that gives us the chance to maybe catapult ourselves into 4th, which is the last remaining European spot this year. Because, of course, remember that we have lost European spots because we fell down the coefficient rankings last year. So there's only 4 spots next year for Europe, which means the European performance of our teams this year is crucial to see us go back up that rankings for the next season. Because we need to be able to hold on to a decent amount of coefficient points for when we have to only deal with 4 teams in Europe next year, and they're much further back in the qualifying round. So there's a good chance they don't even make sort of, the proper league stages of these tournaments, which will be league stages next year. So I think only this Europa League spot is the only one that's guaranteed to be in a European competition league stage. The rest of them have to qualify. We briefly just mentioned the Cup. We beat Trodim and we beat Slavia Prague away again, because of course we have. When I say this season is baffling, this is what I mean. We've played not great, but we've picked up some massive wins. And yet we're still only 6th in the league, but we are through in the Cup and we are through in the Europa League. So whilst we were losing to basically everyone at the beginning of this season in the league, we were beating Olympiakos 3-0 and then Vorskla to get into the Europa League proper, where we beat Feyenoord away, Standard Liège away, and at home, drawing with Tel Aviv. We did lose the last 2 games, but we still finished the group top with 10 points just because of the way the other games panned out. Shout out to Feyenoord drawing on the final day, as we put in our worst performance of the tournament so far and lost to Tel Aviv, who had literally nothing to play for because Standard Liège couldn't overtake them either. So the good news is we do get to bypass the first knockout round of this competition, which does mean less games for us. So actually, I just realised I hadn't seen the draw for the first round, and it appears that Man United have... Oh dear. Man United and Dortmund have fallen into this competition. I'm less confident of doing well in it now. Teams like Chelsea and Arsenal are still in, of course, so winning this, way off the cards. But doing well is important. You can see Slavia Prague also got through their group. And just as a full update in terms of the Builder Nation part of this, obviously we topped our group. We just saw that Slavia Prague got through their group in 2nd behind Getafe. Head of Rangers, though. And Aris, who stole all the goalkeepers. Alan Pardew manages them. You can see who we went for. The top goalkeeper we scouted just in case he got upset at these 2 arriving, but Pinsogilio and Pashilakis, we tried to sign both of those. But unfortunately, Sparta Prague did lose out to Marseille and Roma. It was a tough group from them, and they bowled it on the final day as well. So, fortunately, Sparta Prague are out of the Europa League. I do believe they fall into the knockouts of the Conference League, though, whose knockout rounds should be drawn as well, and they have been given... Oh, Eintracht Frankfurt. That's unfortunate. Never mind. Good news for coefficients, though, is 2 of the nations that were kind of fighting and facing off against each other in Vålerenga and PAOK, Norway and Greece. So, that's good for us. And the one team that we did have in this, which was Victoria Plzen, failed. At least they beat the team that we beat to get into the Europa League, Vorskla, to get pride points. But no, they have lost out to Mechelen as a whole. But as things stand, with coefficient points after the group stages of all the European competitions, we have moved up. I believe the top 10 are still in the right order. So 11, 12, 13, 14. We will move up to 14th. Norway are behind us right now. Switzerland are behind us. Serbia are behind us. And Ukraine are behind us. There's sort of the 4 teams that have moved behind us. 2 of the teams that we were already behind are ahead of us still, in the form of Denmark and Greece. It does make that Vålerenga PAOK tie slightly awkward, because I don't know who I want to win now. Because there's a very tight block there. 31.6 for Greece, 31.3 for us, and 31.2 for Norway. So whoever wins that Vålerenga PAOK tie is going to strengthen their position here, either side of us. So 2 teams in the knockouts of the Europa League is good. I think we've actually got one of the highest coefficients. We do indeed, actually. We've got higher coefficient points than Portugal and the Netherlands. this season, and we've still got more to come because we've got to play. We bypass around, and Slavia Prague have got to play a team. So, and Sparta Prague obviously fell into the Conference League. So there's 3 teams still going for points here. But yeah, it's been a weird season. We are 6th. Rafael de Janeiro has the 2nd highest clean sheets in the league, but despite that, we are 6th. This is mostly why, though. We've scored 8 less goals than they expect us to, and we have 4 less points than they think we should have. According to the XG table, we should be 2nd. So putting the ball in the net appears to be the problem, and there are some teams that are vastly overdoing it. Banek Ostrava, for instance, have scored 9 more goals than they were anticipated to and have 8 more points than they were anticipated to have. So yeah, teams like that are kind of getting in the way. You know, you got teams like Slovakia with 5 more points than they should have. You got teams like Sparta Prague that have 5 points more than they should have. Banek Ostrava have 5 more points than they should have. Bohemians Prague have 6 more points than they should have. They should be in the relegation fight, but they're 9th. In fact, they have actually fallen down recently, I think, because they were 3rd at one point. So that's slowly catching up. So if we ever catch up with our XG at any point, Czech football should be worried. But that's basically the overview of the first half of this season. You will see me again at the end of the season, where hopefully we'll have even better news for you and I'll be slightly less frustrated by the way things are panning out. It's been a weird season and we're only halfway through. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this, do comment, like, subscribe. You know the deal by now. Thank you for joining me. Join me on Twitch, of course, where this happens live. Links down below. I'm actually not that much further ahead as things stand. We might have to skip a week in terms of recaps because I need to get ahead again. But that's it from me from today. Thank you for watching. Ta-ra.